Hello guys, my name is Alyssa Lickner and I'm from Pile of Fabric. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to properly starch your fabric in preparation for cutting. I always suggest that you starch your fabric before you cut. There's sometimes an exception where you would starch after you've cut, but if possible, always try to starch your fabric before you cut. Starching is going to help stabilize the fibers in the fabric, and it's going to really help prevent it against stretching when you're working against the bias, and pretty much help make your piecing more accurate. So it's a very, very important step that I strongly suggest that you don't skip. So the starch that I'm going to be using is Best Press, and this is a non-aerosol liquid starch. It's clear, and I actually go ahead and I just pour it into a spray bottle. And you can use the basic starch that you find at the grocery store as well. If you use that, I would suggest you use the heavy starch as opposed to the regular. You'll get more benefit from it if you do that. So once you have your starch, let's talk about your iron and your pressing board. So you may be using a ironing board, which is fine, and I'm using a pressing table. I've just created this table. It was a table from IKEA, and I put one piece of low loft cotton batting and then some home decor fabric and stapled it on top, so I have this nice big table for pressing. You can also do that with a TV tray, cover a TV tray, but whatever pressing board that you're using, you want to make sure that it's pretty hard. You want it to be pretty hard, only one layer of batting, and if it's a ironing board, you don't want it too puffy. If it's too puffy, it's going to be very difficult to get the accurate starch and accurate press that you want on your fabric. You definitely want it harder than soft. And the next thing I have here is my iron, and I am using a dry hot iron, no steam, just dry. And this iron is just a basic Hamilton Beach, nothing special. But what is important about it is that it's a 1600 watt iron, and it really helps to have a higher wattage iron that can really, really get hot. That'll be really helpful. So that's everything that I have here. Let's begin. The first thing you're going to want to do, I have like a little shy of a half yard here in fabric, and I have my salvages right here lined up salvage to salvage, and then the fold is up here on top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly, kind of like a mist, spray the starch on my fabric. And I'm just going to do it kind of far away, like I'm all the way up here, so just all over. You don't want to do too much. I like to work in layers, and I'll explain that in a second. So let's flip it over so that the starch, the wet side, is down on your pressing board, like that. And then now I'm going to want to go back and make sure my salvages are lined up perfectly, and you can kind of rub your fabric to flatten it out before you're going to press it. And then you're going to take your dry hot iron and you're going to press. And when you're doing a large piece of fabric like this, you can move a little bit, but you ultimately want to really just pick it up and press to get those creases out of your fabric. And what happens is when we flip it over, now the starch is actually rising into the fabric and stabilizing the fibers in the fabric. So continue and get all the creases out, and this is more than just getting wrinkles out. Even if your fabric doesn't look wrinkly or creased, I still suggest you starch it. The whole point is to stabilize the fibers of the fabric. So we will finish up here, and I'm basically picking it up a little bit and moving, picking it up a little bit as I go. Okay, once I have that side done, I'm actually going to spray it again, remember, because we just starched the other side of it. So we're going to spray this side that's facing up. Again, far away, just a light mist, like that, all over. And I'm going to flip it. Okay, and make sure everything's still lined up. And I'm going to go ahead and press again. So now both sides have been starched. Okay. Now you could just stop right there and do just one layer of starch, but I like to really do probably 2 rounds. You could even do 3. You could really get starch happy. Starch is going to come out in the wash, so it's going to stiffen your fabric. It's going to feel kind of funny, but that will come out when you wash your quilt, when you're completely finished. So this is, it's a little bit stiffer, but I'm still not quite ready. So I am going to go ahead and do another layer. And as you see, I am starching in layers as opposed to just spraying a ton and just totally coating it. Because you want to just do it in stages. You don't want to coat your fabric. So I'm going to flip it again, and I'm going to press. And I actually, it's been interesting because I've heard a couple of people talk about back in the day, you would dip your clothes in starch, completely dip it, which is something that I never heard of before. And you don't want to do that with your quilt fabric. We're not going to be doing any dipping. You don't want to dip your block in starch. We really want to use a light layer of starch and do it in rounds and starch it, press it, and just keep going, kind of doing it one set at a time. So I'm going to do it this side one more time, and that will have completed a full 2 rounds of starching. And there we go. So now I've got a bit stiffer fabric, and then this piece is actually ready to rotary cut into my pieces. And that's how I would do yardage.